I guess it's my turn. Well, in any case, I start. My name is Andrea Isoni, and from London, and I'm chair officer of a company called AI Technologies. So all I do all day long is ensuring and actually structuring project for clients in AI, usually mid to large companies. And the other role is I am the committee of ISO, International Standard Organization, for drafting policy and procedure for certifications. AI certification for 2001.
Very nice to meet you, Andrea. Andrea, did you receive the background for the call? You should have gotten an email from Candy.
Yes, it is okay. We can start.
Candy, would you like to take a screenshot now? Candy, if you are, please let everybody know that you're taking a screenshot.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
Okay, maybe then I will go next. Ken Wong. I am the co-chair of the World Digital Technology Academy AI STR group. I know many of you, so thank you for joining. We have a panel later. Nick, Florian, and Andrea will join me on the CAIO discussion. So welcome everyone to tonight's session, and especially for the CAIO panel. So really looking forward to it. Thank you.
线上是吧？对，你能听到。我听不到，可以，你戴耳机。不是，就是他们观众已经你们这个 rehearsal 我们已经能听，已经可以暂停了。
Cannot hear you here.
Professor Lee, you're on mute.
This is Yeo Lee, co-founder and executive chairman of WDTA. Thank you all for your support. I think it's close to 9 p.m. in New York here. So Patricia, yeah, I think you can get started when you are ready.
Sounds great. Candy, did you want to take a screenshot? And then we can get started.
Yes, it is okay.
The screenshot is taken
It's
already.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if, yeah.
Yeah, we can start at 9 o'clock, 20 minutes.
All right, that's great. And I think.
Hey, hello, Professor Paul.
Yeah, hello. How are you?
How are you? Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Hello, Professor Chen.
Oh, hey.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Hi, Professor Guo.
Yeah, Professor Ko, is my good friend.
Brilliant. We can begin, we believe. If anybody still needs the background for this call, please look at your email from Candy. And I'll start with an introduction. So, good evening, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants. Welcome to the Digital Identity in the Era of Artificial Intelligence side event, part of the Action Days at the United Nations Summit of the Future. I'm Patricia Thane, co-founder and CEO of Private AI, background in research in privacy and natural language processing. I'm very excited to be here with you tonight. This event is led by the World Digital Technology Academy, WDTA, and co-organized by governments of Hungary and Gambia, alongside the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development, UNCSTD, and the United Nations Digital Security Alliance, UNDSA. Cloud Security Alliance Greater China Region, CSA-GCR, and the Academician Science and Technology Innovation Center, ASTI. We are thrilled to have a diverse lineup of distinguished speakers today. who will be sharing their insights on how artificial intelligence is reshaping the future of digital identity, education, and cooperation. Without further ado, let us begin the session. To start off the event, we'll now hear a welcome address from Professor Yale Li, Executive Chair of WDTA.
Good evening in America. Good morning in Asia, distinguished guests and friends. It's my honor to welcome you to this side event at the United Nations Summit of the Future. This event, organized by the WDTA, along with esteemed partners from UN entities, governments, and international organizations, brings us together to discuss one of the most critical issues of our time, digital identity in the context of AI. I'm confident with the insights shared here today, we will make meaningful steps towards securing a digital future that benefits all of humanity. This event is in hybrid format to allow participation from all over the world, particularly for speakers who are traveling in different time zones or in emergency situation. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to engaging discussions.
Many thanks. Candy, would you mind sharing the screen with Peter's address, please? Unfortunately, Professor Peter Major couldn't be here with us today, but he did send a message to all of us saying, "Dear distinguished guests, I'm sorry I can't join you due to a medical emergency. April 2023, Professor Yale Li and I co-founded the World Digital Technology Academy, WDTA. Our mission is to expedite the establishment of norms and standards in the digital domain, lead innovation and research in digital technology, foster international collaboration, and stay at the forefront of technological advancements. I call upon all parties to persistently join forces in propelling the global advancement of AI and digital identity. Our technological strides must ensure not just economic progress, but also serve the common interest of all humanity and contribute to the attainment of global sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, the side event at United Nations Summit of the Future holds profound significance in propelling digital cooperation. On behalf of WDTA, UNCSTD, and Hungary, I sincerely wish this event a resounding success. Thank you. Thank you, Candy. And to start, we are honored to hear a message from two leading figures of the United Nations. His Excellency Philemon Yang, President of the UN General Assembly, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. And we will have the opening remarks delivered by several key figures of the field of digital technology and international development. The following 5 speakers will give their speeches via video recording. His Excellency Professor Peter Major, Founding Chairman of WDTA and Vice Chair of the UNCSTD. His Excellency Professor Mohamedou M.O. Ka, Chair of the UNCSTD and Representative of Gambia. His Excellency Siddharth Chatterjee, UN Resident Coordinator in China. Dr. Vince Cerf, Turing Award winner and academician of the WDTA. Now, please have the WDTA colleagues assist in playing the video. Thank you very much.
But we cannot solve 21st century problems with 20th century tools. We need a UN 2.0, a strengthened and updated United Nations built around a quintet of change: data, innovation, digital solutions, strategic foresight, and behavioral science to better reach and support the people of the world.
Let us recommit to the 8 billion people in every corner of the world that this august body can and will meet their hopes for a brighter future.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to address this distinguished gathering at the World Digital Technology Academy Action Days side event of the Summit of the Future on the theme Digital Identity in the Era of Artificial Intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, as we gather for the UN Summit of the Future, we stand at a pivotal crossroad in our global journey towards sustainable development. The challenges we face, climate change, inequality, and rapid technological advancement, demand our immediate and collective action. The Global Digital Compact presents a unique opportunity to harness the power of technology for the greater good, ensuring that no one is left behind in the digital revolution. The role of the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development, CSTD, which I serve as its chair, is crucial in this endeavor. By fostering innovation and knowledge sharing, the CSTD empowers member states such as the Gambia, Africa at large, and other least developing countries, including small island developing states, to leverage artificial intelligence-powered digital utilities, tools, and services to enable and accelerate sustainable development. The UN Commission for Science and Technology for Development contributions are instrumental in shaping meaningful policies that not only advance technological access but also promote equity and inclusion. In April 2024, the UN CSTD was tasked with establishing a multi-stakeholder working group on fundamental principles of data governance at all levels relevant for development, under the auspices of the United Nations. This initiative takes into account the conclusions of the negotiations and the outcomes of the Summit of the Future, including the Global Digital Compact. The Global Digital Compact has encouraged the CSTD to report on its progress to the General Assembly by no later than the 81st session in September 2026. This input should include follow-up recommendations towards equitable and interoperable data governance arrangements. These may encompass fundamental principles of data governance at all levels, relevant for development, proposals to support interoperability between national, regional, and international data systems, considerations for sharing the benefits of data, and options to facilitate safe, secure, and trusted data flows, including cross-border data flows as relevant for development. The task ahead of us is both challenging and essential. We must ensure that the future of data governance reflects inclusivity, fairness, innovation, and collaboration across borders. It is through such collective efforts that we can build systems that not only protect individual rights and promote trust, but also unlock the immense potential that data holds for societal advancement. As we strive to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, our respective roles as UN entities, member states, academia, research institutions, and NGOs such as our WDTA are interlinked and vital. We must collectively advocate and commit to sustainability for investments in data and digital infrastructure, enhance digital literacy and competencies, and promote ethical standards and human rights approach in technology use and responsible AI and AI for good. By fostering meaningful partnerships and collaborations, we can co-create a resilient, sustainable, adaptive, and responsible data and digital ecosystem that accelerates progress towards the SDGs, supports economic growth, ensures adequate guardrails without stifling innovations, and improves the quality of life for all. Let us seize this moment during our diverse engagements at this UNGA 2024 and the Summit of the Future to reaffirm our commitment to a sustainable, responsible digital future that is inclusive, responsive, equitable, adaptable, human-centric with adequate guardrails and guided by ethical standards and a human rights approach. Together, we can ensure that technology serves as a powerful catalyst for achieving our shared visions of a better and sustainable and prosperous world for generations to come. Thank you for your kind attention, and I look forward to fruitful discussion on this side event and strong and strengthened collaborations with WDTA that will emerge from this summit. And I thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me start on behalf of the United Nations family here in China by congratulating our new President of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Philemon Yang. Today, I'm honored to join you at this event focused on developing a world identity strategy that leverages digital technology. I thank the World Digital Technology Academy, along with Hungary, Gambia, and China, for the invitation to speak at today's event. We gather here to explore the future of digital identity in the era of artificial intelligence, with a particular emphasis on safeguarding human rights. In the dawn of the artificial intelligence era, the challenges of digital identity are multifaceted and complex. Privacy and security are fundamental human rights. Valid concerns are held about artificial intelligence systems becoming more sophisticated and capable of malicious purposes. Ensuring digital identities are secure from such threats is a prerequisite for its broader use. Ladies and gentlemen, on inclusivity, digital identities must be accessible to all individuals who choose them, regardless of their location, circumstances, or capabilities. However, achieving universal accessibility will require us to close the digital divide further and ensure equitable access to technology. As the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres says, and has correctly pointed out, and I quote, AI capacities today are concentrated in a handful of powerful companies and even fewer countries. Meanwhile, too many countries face significant challenges in accessing AI tools, end of quote. With many digital identity systems developed by different entities, from governments to private companies, ensuring these systems can interact and recognize each other is crucial. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a global leader in the digital technology space, China has a major role to play here. As it looks to implement a national identity initiative, it must demonstrate that it can also leverage this form of technology for the benefit of all its citizens. Such experiences, learned from creating secure, efficient, and inclusive digital identity systems, may, as a matter of fact, provide potential insights and lessons for the global community. To truly harness the artificial intelligence's potential, we need international cooperation and solidarity. I therefore echo the Secretary General's call for all member states, the private sector, civil society, research organizations, the media, to develop and support regulatory and governance approaches and frameworks related to safe, secure, and trustworthy use of artificial intelligence. With a view to the Summit of the Future, an agreement on a global digital compact, let us commit ourselves to creating a responsible and ethical framework that harnesses the power of artificial intelligence for good, steering our progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's seize artificial intelligence potential to build a more sustainable, fair, and prosperous future for all, and leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Vince Cerf. I'm Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist at Google. And my topic today has to do with authenticity, with provenance, with identity, and the increasing need to validate content as to its origin, and whether or not the actions that might be taken in an online environment on your behalf, or on someone's behalf, on a corporation's behalf, or an individual's behalf, in fact is undertaken with authority. And the only way we're going to achieve that objective is to have a notion of very strong authenticated identity together with something which indicates that an action or a piece of content has been authorized by a known party that can be validated. This makes me think of the old Chinese notion of chops. If you remember, these special signet rings that could be used, and they were unique for a given party, and were difficult, if not impossible, to reproduce, and therefore could be used as a reliable indicator. Well, we need to have that same capability in the digital world. We need to have strong authentication. And by the way, this is a very important notion because you don't want a party to take actions on your behalf that you didn't authorize. So somehow, if we're going to have software taking actions on our behalf, there has to be a way for the party receiving a request or a demand or an action to verify and validate that it comes from a known party that it is willing to take action on whose behalf it's willing to take action. Digital signatures are one kind of mechanism for that. Now, we do have a little problem right now because the current crop of quantum computers is starting to look like they may become really feasible to build. And if we build them at the right scale, they'll be used to run Shor's algorithm, which will effectively break the difficulty of factoring the products of large primes, which is the basis for many of today's public key crypto systems. Unfortunately, there exist some post-quantum algorithms that the National Institutes of Standards and Technology have identified and are in the middle of testing. So we may actually be able to protect ourselves from the Shor's algorithm threat, which is not a threat today, but it could be a threat 10, 20 years from now. And if there's information that we need to protect for that period of time, then we need to introduce these post-quantum algorithms right away. So I would say that those of us who are concerned about strong authentication to avoid parties taking actions that you didn't authorize, to be able to validate provenance in order to avoid misinformation and disinformation from propagating without any visibility as to its inaccuracy, should be very interested in looking for mechanisms that allow us to validate the provenance of content. We still have a long ways to go, in my view, before we have a set of tools that we can rely upon. But that's exactly why we're having this discussion, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of your discussions as we look for a safer way into the future. So although I can't be there in person, perhaps we'll cross paths on the net.
Distinguished participants.
Next, Professor Sipi Chen, academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering, Fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering, academician of the WDTA. Please turn on your camera and deliver your opening speech.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, thanks to Professor Ye Li for the invitation. It is a great pleasure to address the digital identity in this era of artificial intelligence side event on the action days of the UN Summit of the Future. In this era of a profound transformation, digitalization and artificial intelligence have become core driving force for global development. Digital identity, the theme of today's discussion, is crucial for advancing global human rights protection, social equity, and the establishment of global order. By creating a unified global digital identity framework, we can further promote the balance between technology and ethics while fulfilling our social responsibilities. As the Secretariat of the Academy General Assembly of the World Digital Technology Academy, the International Academician Science and Technology Innovation Center, or in abbreviation is IASTIC, founded by me, is proud to announce today the establishment of the US branch of the International Academician Science and Technology Innovation Center in partnership with our close friend WDTA to further strengthen cooperation between science, technology, and international governance. The International Academician of Science and Technology Innovation Center will continue to support the work of the World Digital Technology Academy General Assembly, actively promoting the development of the international AI standard system and establishing an AI evaluation framework and platform. Through the establishment of these global standards, we aim to balance the need of developed country and developing country, create fair and just mechanism, build technological consensus, unlock innovation potential, foster trust in AI technology across nations, and ensure that AI can responsibly contribute to the well-being of all humanity. This will not only guarantee the global safety, reliability, and transparency of AI technology, but also help promote the healthy and sustainable development of AI, providing strong support across industry. Let us seize this opportunity to further strengthen collaboration and shape a future where technology consistently serves well-being of humanity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Sijik Chan. Now we will proceed to our keynote speech on shaping the identity of the future, which will be delivered by Professor Yeo Lee, Executive Chair of WDTA. He'll provide us with a forward-looking perspective on how digital identity will evolve in the age of AI.
Thank you, Patricia. Let me share my screen. Give me a sec. So can you see the full screen?
Perfectly.
It's an honor to be here today at United Nations headquarters in New York and online to discuss a topic that is central to our rapidly evolving world, shaping identity of the future. As we move deeper into the digital age, the concept of identity, how we define it, use it, and protect it, has become increasingly important. First, let's define what we mean by identity. Identity, whether physical, biometric, or digital, comprises all of attributes that uniquely define an individual. In the digital space, digital identity is a data that represents an individual. We need to think about identity as a life cycle that includes creation, verification, authentication, authorization, changes, and termination. With the rise of digital technologies, we now have government IDs, digital certificates, and blockchain-based IDs that ensure security and privacy. But identity is getting more complex with the technology advancement. Things are not static in Erickson's 8 stages anymore. The attributes of identity change over time, both physically and mentally. Imagine a person change his or her gender after surgery. The biometric data changed, but the identity should not be changed. Identity and its challenges. Digital identity offers opportunities such as cross-border mobility, financial inclusion, and improved access to services. However, it also poses challenges, including the issues of registration, privacy protection, identity theft, and legal concerns. The use of protocols like OAuth, OpenID, and decentralized ID are helping address these challenges. But we will explore much remains to be done from both a societal and a technical perspective. Let's take a brief look at the history of identity development. In early 1990s, digital identity started emerging with the rise of the internet. By year 2000, biometrics like fingerprints were introduced in computer logon, passports, and government IDs. Estonia's e-residency and India's Aadhaar system revolutionized national identity programs. And by 2020s, we are now seeing the rise of blockchain-based and decentralized identity systems in the world. Here are some examples of different countries. Different regions have taken varied approaches to identity systems. In United States, the US traditionally relied on decentralized identity verification in each state, strengthened by the Real ID Act post-9/11. In recent years, digital identity systems like login.gov and ID.me have provided secure access to government services. In China, with its centralized national ID system, has moved toward the digital identity system, such as CTID, Cyber Trusted Identity, leveraging data technology, and EID, leveraging PKI technology, making secure online access part of everyday life. Recently, NetID is launched in China for trusted users to use internet services. In European Union, the EU launched the EIDAS regulation in 2014 to unify electronic identification across member states. In 2021, the EU Digital Identity Wallet was introduced, providing citizens with cross-border access to services. Technologies like generative AI, quantum computing, and the metaverse are emerged to radically change the landscape of identity. Generative AI brings risk like deep fake identities and synthetic identity fraud. Quantum computing could compromise cryptography algorithm, undermining the security of current identity systems, as Dr. Winterthur talked earlier. In the metaverse, we must grapple with the challenges like avatar hijacking and deepfake avatars, raising new concerns about digital identity management. This is a UN's perspective on identity. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by General Assembly in 1948. It inserts identity is a basic human right. With a UN 2.0 announced by the Secretary General of UN, we heard earlier, there's a new focus on digital transformation, placing identity at the core of this effort. By year 2030, the UN aims to achieve universal identity for all people through the UN strategy for legal identity. This diagram on the screen is the high-level architectural design in UN identity strategy. The goal is to bridge identity gaps to ensure inclusivity through global identification systems. But we see some improvements for current UN strategy. What should be the next step be? We propose several key areas for strategy improvement. Inclusivity, issue global IDs under the UN's guidance for individuals without citizenship or lost proof of citizenship. Digital rights, adopt decentralized IDs to complement existing systems to protect human rights. Every human on Earth deserves a digital ID that cannot be denied. Non-human ID, embrace technology revolution by managing non-human identity, such as a digital person or AI robots or AI agent. AI automated identity lifecycle, leverage AI to assist in identity verification, authentication, authorization, and lifecycle management. Autonomous identity, address the emerging notion of a digital soul by considering how identity can be maintained even after death in virtual spaces. To implement this vision, we need to clarify ownership. UN agencies like the UNHRC, CSTD, and the World Bank should guide the strategy and communicate with the member states. Mobilize resources. We must engage stakeholders to secure funding and technical expertise. Set timelines, a clear roadmap with pilot programs and milestones to help guide the global adoption of World ID. The World ID initiative is not just a technical solution. It is a vital step towards ensuring identity is protected as a basic human right, aligning with the UN Declaration of Human Rights, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the UN 2.0, and the Global Digital Compact. Together, we can bridge identity gaps and promote global inclusion. Taking this opportunity, WDTA would like to make an announcement of AI STR certification. UN Secretary General emphasized the risk of generative AI many times. Later, you will hear more from Professor Gary Marcus. In April, WDTA released 2 standards at the CSTD annual meeting in UN Geneva office. This month, WDTA released the 3rd standard at the Inclusion Conference in Shanghai. Based on released and future standards, generative AI products and services can now get certified by passing third-party testing and validation. Next is a virtual ceremony time. All speakers, please turn on your camera now. First is the establishment of WDTA America's headquarters. This will enable us to serve the Americas region better locally than remotely from Geneva. Second is the establishment of a US branch of the International Academician Science and Technology Innovation, IASTIC. I hope both organizations will be bridge for better practices from across US and the world. Thank you. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Professor Lee. Congratulations to both organizations on these remarkable achievements. We will now shift our focus to digital education, innovation, and cooperation. Our esteemed panelists will share their thoughts on how global collaboration in education can be enhanced through AI and digital technology. Please join me in welcoming Professor Yike Guo, Executive Vice President and Provost of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology.
Mute myself. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me for this presentation. I try to share my screen. Let me hold on. To share system. Oh, this one is not allowing me to share.
Oh. What are you seeing on your screen at the moment, Professor Guo?
I think I'll use the web to actually log into the Zoom. Probably that's the reason. Choose what to share. They just the share button coming. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me do that. Looks working. Okay, just a second. No, it's not sharing. Okay, all right. Wait. Share my screen. You're sharing my screen. Okay. Let me count my PPT out. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
My screen. Okay, here. Share my screen. Okay. All right. Can you see my PPT?
Almost. It's opening.
It's okay, right? It's okay?
Yeah. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, let me do that. All right. Can you see my screen, right?
Perfectly.
All right. So yeah, my talk is more on the university education in the AI area. Probably you know the HKUST is one of the first university in the world to actually adopt the AI, generative AI technology, particularly ChatGPT for higher education. And we have experienced this one for a year now and accumulated quite a number of experiences, which I may share with you all. As you all know, the impact of AI to the education is actually fundamental. And the change is not just about we have new tools, is in fact change a lot of our understanding of education from learning to teaching and also to the way of the assessment and also the way of the knowledge acquisition and the knowledge assimilation. So traditional education is really just about acquire knowledge, and we choose a teacher presenting the knowledge they understand or they accumulated to transfer it to the teacher to the students. That's pretty much the way. And then we use traditional assessment mechanism to check if the education is actually effective. And then we maintain the quality assurance and then the students and keep doing this way. So the learning pedagogy is very much focused on how to effectively transfer the knowledge. But when AI come to the play, and with the traditional education as start to change. At the beginning, the traditional in the traditional AI, traditional education, AI is mainly as a tool, and you can accumulate a lot of the information to the analysis to understand how well the student is learned, and also try to assess the effectiveness of our teaching. And all this evidence-based design of the course, evidence-based design of the assessment methods, this all treat AI just as a tool. But now when the ChatGPT, our generative AI, comes to play, and we face a completely new situation. The learning environment is now totally changed. Now we have two means to actually now for the teachers and also to students, a human and machine co-work together to in this education scenario. So it's really posed some very important fundamental questions to the education. Education, the question is all about the foundations of our education. What is knowledge? What is content generated by a machine? What is learning? And what shall we teach? All these questions are, very basic. It was very taken as granted and not really needed to, have some careful thinking. But within the ChatGPT, all the things is now questionable and it should be rethink seriously. So what is knowledge? There is fundamental definitions from the history, the knowledge from the Plato's point of view, and back to the 2,000 years ago. And the knowledge is cognitive activities, and knowledge is one of our cognition, and a very important part, right? A term, the knowledge need to be justified. So in the older day, ancient time, the justification coming from the argument, debate, right? So this is the way you justify a piece of knowledge is the truth or its value. And then more and more come to the modern world when the data become so available and knowledge is still cognitive, but justification changed and it can be done by the data and by testimony. So a lot of work we're doing here now is very much in the way of using the evidence to justify what we learned. So justification is not sufficient for just knowledge. The justification is basically provide a high probability of the truth. But this is all well accepted. So we're working on acquire the piece of the information and use the data or use our experience to justify. But when it comes to the large language model is actually tell you, right, when you propose a question, propose a prompt, and the machine will tell you something, right? So a lot of time people treat this one as a knowledge. But from the definition of the knowledge, this is not really quite the truth. And the contents generated by the knowledge, generated by the machine, it's not a knowledge yet. It's just compressed information. The information from the internet is a compressed version of the information. But it's do go beyond just a normal information. It's organized in the way like human communicate. So it's a compressed, is a really digested a piece of information and present in the human way. But they can present, but they cannot easily communicate, right? GPT can actually convey certain kind of compressed information. However, it's not just knowledge, and is even not close to what we are talking about human communication. It's just like the Professor Laguin, who is a linguist and also a writer, who correctly point out. So the words stripped of if you strip the word, the humanity out of the words, and then it's just a token of the information rather than a human communication or communication with the humanity. So therefore, we really need to bear in mind during the education, the role of ChatGPT play is a really display, is a search, is a compressed search results rather than the knowledge we are going to present to our students or we are going to present to each other as a communication. So then what is the learning? So basically, right, from the learning theory and from, I'm a computer scientist. For me, the learning by the machine and learning by the human, or machine learning or human learning, are basically justify the piece of information to actually build up the comparison between what you think and what is in the physical world. So in another way, if we write it in the mathematical forms, is kind of computer mutual entropy. So the idea is you want to justify, you want to compare the difference between your subjective word and with your objective word. So that's very much a learning model. So if you treat this one as a learning and then the teaching coming from, you want to really convey your belief or your knowledge and your cognition to the other people, which is a student. So older days, our learning is very much a remembrance and make people to remember it. But nowadays with AI, you don't need to remember too much anymore. Machine remembers for you most of the time. The thing you need to do is you need to justify, you need to verify that what the machine tell you, which the machine remembered something, is actually true or it fit your subject word. So we are now move the students from a generation of remembrance to a generation of the suspicious. The other one is we from delivered so-called true opinions with account, with your own account, to help to establish, justify a true belief. So this is a very different game, and it's going to be a pretty much fundamental change. And third one, you inject humanity to the information currently to illuminate the true belief. So that is a teaching. So the number one is you need to create, you need to generate the critical thinking ability. The second one is you need to make sure you can establish a belief, which is the way of assess the internet knowledge. The third one, you have to inject humanity into your communication. So the fundamental problems really on the education now with the machine and with the human is our language model, our AI technology, and all machine learning is totally different from human learning, right? Is almost opposite. So as a human, we started with learning common science, and then when we grow up, when a childhood, we actually learn the values, what is right, what is wrong, and then with learning, systematically learning specific knowledge. Finally, we will go to the world, we learn by ourselves with social experience. And machine is learned very differently. They first of all learn all the experience, every information in the world from the internet. And gradually they want to tune such a knowledge to fine tune through so-called alignment to learn some piece of the special knowledge, right? Like physics, like mathematics. And then machine need to learn human value. That's already extremely difficult work. This is now a very hot subject of AI. And the final way, machine have to have some common sense. This is now almost impossible. If we have machine have common sense, we're not far away from general AI. So you can clearly see the challenge of human learning and the machine learning and assimilated together in the education come from their fundamentally difference. So therefore, we needed to really rethink, right, our education. But the best way to think is not just do the abstractly, but put it into practice. That's why in the last March, right, almost a year, 1.5 years ago, we generated our own version of GPT for teaching and for faculty or students. And then now in the HKST, right, every faculty member will have properly trained with GPT technology, and we developed our own GPT now, and for our teachings and for our education purpose. So the more we do, and the more we learn, and this the fundamental change of the AI, fundamental change, generative AI in education is quite fundamental. Right, we turn the students from passive consumer of the information, including our teacher, to the interactive consumer, to the individual creator, collaborative coordinator. Finally, we went to the point: human students and teachers all join together to really, to create knowledge in a way, the co-creation, in a way of we design the questions, we get the answer from the machine, and then we verify it. Through verification, we get acquire more information, and we create more, sensible questions, and then generally we do this called expensive learning supported by AI. So it's actually in this world, right? The teacher has changed quite a bit. We need very different teachers. They have three aspects, in my opinion. They have the humanistic aspects. Its value is the key, right? Because when you do the justification, when you do the verification, the value is fundamentally important. And then you have the cognitive perspective, right? You need a critical thinking and a creativity, and also have a social perspective. Now we're in a three-party world: teacher, machine, and students. In that world, we need to create really a three-way communication. And so this is very new, and we are working. The digital identity, which I mentioned in the scene of this meeting, is in fact very important here. And we have a digital identity of the people, digital identity of the machine even. So therefore, this is one of the interesting subjects here. All right, so let me summarize it. We now really need some action about this. We need to build the best practice for the higher education. We have to customize the learning experiences. We need to develop the collaborative learning environment for machine-enabled peer interaction and global problem solving. We need to develop a new assessment methods, explore the use AI to monitor the learning patterns, and also automated active scoring systems, which we are really doing now, and feedback tools to provide informative feedback on student work and develop pilot for new pedagogy design, right? So I published papers in higher education address the importance of navigate of AI revolution in higher education and the call for action. I think this conference on digital identity is closely related to these efforts. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'm actually one of the person who is very optimistic about AI development. We believe, right, smart people create intelligent machine, and the intelligent machine will actually make us more smart, and we create even better machine and make us more smart. So this circle should be the way we go. Of course, we have a lot of risk we want to talk about today, but in general, I feel technology development will progress human civilization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Guo. From a generation of remembrance to a generation of the suspicious is a beautifully concise description. And please allow me to welcome Professor Jingbo Huang, Director of the United Nations University Institute in Macau.
Thank you, dear colleagues. And it's really eye-opening and wonderful to hear Professor Guo's presentation. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Jingbo Huang, the director of a United Nations University Research Institute in Macau. UNU is one of the UN system organization, and we are focusing on research, policy-relevant research and teaching and learning. And the institute that I'm heading in Macau focuses its research, teaching, and learning on digital technologies and sustainable development goals. And particularly in the recent years, in our portfolio, we have we put AI as our priority. So today, actually, we would like to share with you one of the important research projects that we have completed in with our UNU rector Chinese Marwala on the synthetic data, how to use synthetic data to train AI models. And we had dedicated sessions. We also have a policy briefs. We have a dedicated session in our the UNU Macau AI conference in April. So we shared this work, and also we launched the UNU Global AI Network with the multi-stakeholders. We highly invite all of the relevant and interested partners to join the network to co-create solutions for the global pressing issues related to AI. Now, without further ado, I'll give the floor to my colleague, Dr. Serge Stinkwish, who is the head of research, computer scientist, and he will share the synthetic data work that we have collaborated working on. Thank you. Over to Serge, please.
Thank you, Jimbo. I will share my screen. Can you see all my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm Serge Stinkwish. I'm a computer scientist, and I am the head of research at the United Nations University Institute in Macau. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share research initiative that we are developing at the United Nations University. And I think this research will reframe the discussions that we have on AI and relationship with digital identity. At UNU, we are very interested to understand the interrelationship between digital technologies, including AI and sustainable development. And we know that the data divide is a very important issue that leads to data invisibility of marginalized communities. AI system might take decisions for people who are not represented at all. So one alternative is to use synthetic data. So data that are created by computer algorithms that reproduce the statistical distribution of real world data. Maybe you are not aware of that, but a recent study of Garden Group predicts that 60% of the data used to train machine learning algorithms in 2024 is actually synthetic data. So this was only 1% in 2021. So we are already living in this world where most of the data used to train AI pipelines is synthetic. So this will have a huge impact on digital identities. Synthetic data can solve some of the issues related to privacy protections, as synthetic data is not representing actual people and does not contain personally identifiable information. Synthetic data might also play an important role to de-risk AI, reduce, for example, bias that exists in data sets, like gender, racial bias. But there are still risks if things are not done correctly. So there's a need to provide recommendations for policymakers for this new reality. And at the beginning of 2024, we worked with the rector of UNU, Professor Chilizi Mawala, a policy brief on the use of synthetic data, where we tried to identify the benefits of synthetic data in the context of the achievements of the sustainable goals in 2030, but also we try to identify the potential threats that might come, like the one of data pollution. I don't have time to discuss more about that today, but if you want to know more, you can download this policy recommendation on the website with the QR code provided on this slide. I want to move now on the second research initiative that we have been developing more recently. And at UNU, we are very interested now how to involve more people in decision-making, as decision-making processes are more and more automated and more driven by AI tools at the end. So most of the time, collective decision-makings lack the perspective of the voiceless. So not only the marginalized population that are not correctly represented in AI system, but also stakeholders like the natures or the future generation. As these stakeholders are not visible, this might impact long-term consequences of decisions. How to give to these unheard stakeholders a digital identity, a digital voice. We come up with other partners with this idea of AI voice. So AI voice is the idea that AI system might amplify the voice of the typically unheard stakeholders. So the idea is to balance the voice of domain expert that normally are we use when we are building decision when we do decision making, with the voice decisions of stakeholders, people that will be impacted by decision making process. The first introduction of this idea of AI voice was done recently by the Professor Angela Aristitou from Stanford University in a publication called AI Speak on Behalf of Future Humans, that you can download also with this QR code. And recently, we organized with the UNFCCC a first workshop on AI voice to apply this in the context of climate change during the Bonn AI and Climate expert meeting organized by our colleagues from the UNU Institute for Environment and Human Security. So we invite people with different perspectives, AI, social science, social simulation, participatory approaches, and we ask a panel of African researchers to share their views and feedback on this idea. And if we want to develop further this idea, we would have to understand the ethical consequences of representing marginalized population with the AI system, how to develop responsible AI voices. This was already mentioned by Vincent and Professor Yeli. The question of AI voice is also strongly related to the new trend that we are seeing right now about agentic AI systems. So AI systems that became more and more autonomous and that can represent individuals and can make decisions on their behalf. So we have to work to make space to empower the minorities, the marginalized population, and the underrepresented viewpoints, not to represent the voice or to speak on behalf of these people, but rather to support better representation, counter narratives, create awareness of data gaps, and provide opportunities to deep and meaningful contributions. And at the end, it's also very important to keep the human in the loop in such systems. So if you want to know more about this idea of AI voice, please have a look to our website where we will publish a report on the workshop that we have conducted recently. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professors Huang and Professor Sinkwich. Next, we will welcome Mr. Ashutosh Chalha, Senior Director of UN Affairs and International Organizations at Microsoft.
Thank you. Greeting, everyone. And it's a great pleasure for me to be speaking on a topic which is actually very related to all the conversation that we're having, which is the intersection of human rights and technology, right? And is actually embedded in the ethos of responsible business practices. What I'll try to endeavor is to outline some of Microsoft's approach to human rights and discuss 5 salient human rights issues which can serve as a guiding framework as we look at technology and digital identity and driving digital technology for enabling socioeconomic growth. And what should we, as companies, everybody should be doing to uphold some of these fundamental principles. At Microsoft, our commitment to human rights is unwavering and integral to our mission, which is to empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. We believe that technology should be used for the good of humanity to empower and protect everyone and to leave no one behind. And our approach is obviously grounded in international laws, principles, and norms, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We, in that process, engage with a broad range of stakeholders to ensure that technology respects and advances human dignity, agency, and well-being. And that commitment is obviously reflected in our comprehensive human rights due diligence processes, transparency reports, and our stance on emerging human rights issues where we engage with multiple stakeholders. However, with the advancement of technology, it becomes very critical for us to look at what are the areas where technology can really impact people. And in our opinion, there are 3 fundamental areas. Where technology can have a consequential impact on a user's legal status or life opportunities, where technology can create the presence of a risk of significant physical or psychological injury, or it can restrict or infringe upon or undermine the ability or to realize in an individual's human rights. So these are 3 fundamental areas that we feel technology could have negative impacts on human rights. Since 2017, at Microsoft, we have refined our approach through our AI and Ethics Engineering Research Committee, as well as the Office of the Responsible AI. They have established for the organization principles and standards to ensure AI is developed responsibly, focusing on various areas like fairness, reliability, safety, privacy, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. And in that process, as we've been going around doing that research and implementation internally, we found that there are 5 salient issues that need to be addressed on the intersection of human rights and technology. The first salient issue, and it's been alluded to in the previous talks, is the area of digital safety. In an increasingly connected world, the safety of individuals online is paramount. And as companies, all of us must prioritize the development and deployment of technologies that protect users from cyber threats, misinformation, and digital harassment. As an example, in Microsoft, we apply a multi-pronged approach to this, which includes platform architecture, content moderation, building a culture of safety and collaboration within the industry and with government stakeholders to implement rules, policies, and guidelines, as well as education campaigns. So for example, in our Microsoft Xbox platform, we have child settings and parental controls to ensure safer gaming environment for children. In addition to that, we use advanced detection methodologies to protect users from cyber threats such as malware and phishing attacks. But it's not just important to get our house in order. It's also very important that companies should proactively work with government, civil society, and international organizations to drive robust capacity building and policy measures to ensure that these get enshrined in public ethos. The second key issue is accessibility. Technology needs to be inclusive and accessible to people of all abilities. And hence, companies should design products and services that cater to diverse needs, ensuring that everyone, regardless of their physical or cognitive abilities, can benefit from technological advancements. To sort of further and build that ethos within our company, we, for example, looked at accessible products and creating solutions and tools like Seeing AI, which is an app that narrates the world for visually impaired users. Within our Microsoft Office suite, we have features like live captions and subtitles in PowerPoint to assist users who are hard of hearing, etc. So these become a significant area of intervention. In the area of generational AI, which functions hugely around data, it is critical now that we look at robust data practices to see that all segments and perspectives are reflected, which is important for accessibility. And hence, recently at the ITU AI for Good event in Geneva, we made, as Microsoft, a renewed pledge to address the concept of data desert in the era of generational AI solutioning to ensure that we capture data from all different perspectives, including people with disabilities. A third area of issue that we feel is the area of the freedom of expression and under human rights. Companies need to respect individuals' right to express their opinions and ideas freely. And this includes safeguarding against censorship, ensuring that platforms are not used to suppress dissenting voices, and at the same time also not misused to create dissent. Privacy becomes another salient issue. In an area where data becomes a valuable asset, protecting users' privacy is crucial. Companies must be transparent about how they're collecting the data, the practices that they use, obtain informed consent from users, and implement strong data protection measures. As an example, our privacy principles include giving the users control over their data, protecting data with strong security measures, and being transparent about our data practices. And our privacy dashboard actually allows users to manage their data and privacy settings easily. The fifth and final issue is responsible sourcing within human rights, which is fundamentally companies must ensure that their supply chains are also free from human rights abuses, so issues like forced child labor, forced labor are things that need to be considered. And this involves then conducting thorough due diligence, working with the suppliers to improve their labor practices, and being transparent globally towards our sourcing policies. Our supplier code of conduct, for example, prohibits forced labor and requires suppliers to adhere to very high standards of labor practices. We conduct regular audits and risk assessments to ensure compliance. And at the same time, we also publish our annual device sustainability report. In conclusion, the commitment to human rights is not just becoming a moral obligation, but it's a business imperative. And by addressing all these 5 human rights issues around safety, digital safety, accessibility, freedom of expression, privacy, and responsible sourcing, companies can actually create a positive impact on society and build trust with their stakeholders. And at Microsoft, we're dedicated to leading by example and encouraging others in the technology sectors and beyond to join us in this vital endeavor. Together, we can harness the power of technology to advance human rights and create a much more just and equitable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taha. Next, we're welcoming Ms. Carol Roach by video, the Undersecretary from the Cabinet Office of the Government of the Bahamas.
Participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to address you today at this side event of the UN Summit of the Future Action Days, hosted by the World Digital Technology Academy and its partners. I am Carol Roach from the Cabinet Office of the Government of the Bahamas and the chair of the UN Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. Let me first take this opportunity to thank the organizing entities for affording me this opportunity to speak to you. Digital technology is ever-present and inescapable. It influences how we live, work, and socially interact with each other, and is a proven accelerator for the development of the economy, education, health, and transportation sectors. For small island developing states, in particular, digital drives the growth of industries that are the pillars of their economy, tourism, farming, and fishing. Truly, the most significant opportunity today is the potential of digital transformation and the use of technologies such as AI. However, although digital has brought extraordinary opportunities and advancements, it has also introduced significant risks and challenges that we must continue to address. Leveraging digital technologies must not ignore the threats to societies. People are crucial to digital transformation, and as such, we must first recognize that the groups that are disadvantaged economically, socially, and educationally offline are also tend to be disadvantaged digitally and online. These inequalities are not only being reflected, but may also be amplified online. Digital transformation must prioritize human capital, not only in terms of fundamental digital literacy, but also in capacity building for the workforce required to develop, maintain, and sustain digital development. Second, recognize that connectivity and access gaps are a barrier to building an inclusive and diverse internet and digital ecosystem. The goal of digital inclusion is to level up the online environments so that everyone can embrace equitable digital development and socioeconomic growth. Third, recognize that culture and norms affect the adoption of digital technologies and therefore the success of digital transformation. Businesses and governments must strongly demonstrate the added value of digital. This transformation is not just about the technology, but the shift of mindsets that encourage testing, adopting, and embracing the transformation. This is emphasized for the public service. In SIDS, the government is invariably the largest employer and has the largest and most diverse service offering. However, global analysis has shown that 70 to 80% of government digital transformation projects fail or do not meet expectation. Lastly, we need to recognize that the human rights and dignity of people must be upheld throughout innovation, design, and development. Data privacy and access to essential services such as education, health, shelter, and food must not be threatened, and persons should not be alienated. Governments must put in place a regulatory framework that safeguards equity and inclusion, ensures data privacy and protection, consumer protection, and human rights, while fostering fair market competition and innovation for emerging technologies. Digital technologies offer great potential to address the most unrelenting challenges. We saw this with COVID-19, and we see how it can improve resiliency. Technology is here to stay, and we must look at it as an everyday essential tool or asset, an integral part of our daily routines, no matter a person's standing or socially or economically. Policymakers need to embrace the concept of digital innovation and digital cooperation. These must be evident in policy development and must be reflected in the national strategies, frameworks, and implementation plans. The Internet Governance Forum is at the forefront of digital and internet technologies. It is recognized as a place for discussion, policy building, and the showcase for global digital progress. The IGF 2024 takes place from the 15th to the 19th of December in Riyadh underneath the overarching theme of building our multi-stakeholder digital future, with its program being developed around 4 sub-themes. 1, harnessing innovation and balancing risks in the digital space. 2, enhancing the digital contribution to peace, development, and sustainability. 3, advancing human rights and inclusion in the digital age. And 4, improving digital governance for the internet we want. The forum will feature a rich program with engaging sessions on digital and the economy, digital and the environment, and the digital and the people, speaking to gender and inclusion, gaps and catalysts, best practices, and strategy alignment. IGF 2024 is not something you would want to miss. Registration is open for in-person and on-site participation. Please visit infogovforum.org and the IGF 2024 website. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again to all our distinguished panelists in the Digital Education, Innovation, and Cooperation segment. The next segment focuses on the critical role of the Chief AI Officer, CAIO, in shaping the digital era. Our moderator, Mr. Ken Huang, co-chair of the WDTA AI SCR Working Group, will lead this discussion, joined by our expert panelists, Mr. Nick James, CEO of White Glove AI, Mr. Florian Rotar, CAIO of Avanaid, Dr. Andrea Isoni, CAIO of AI Technologies, and we look forward to an insightful discussion on how CAIOs are influencing the trajectory of digital transformation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. It's a great honor to be moderator of this CAIO panel with a distinguished panelists of CAIOs, Florian, Nick, and Andrea. I will let them introduce themselves in just a moment. We have a lot of good topics that is maybe bigger topic and open-ended. So what I would ask panelists is to focus on a few points and then maybe give some real-world examples and try to keep your answer within 2 minutes. Otherwise, we'll never finish. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Nick, Florian, and Andrea to contribute to our recent book. It's called the Handbook for Chief AI Officer. This is a textbook for the WDTA's educational program, which is also part of the UN Bridge program called International Chief AI Officer. So welcome everyone also to contribute and to join this program. With that, I will let every panelist to introduce themselves. Florian, maybe start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this amazing session and to share perhaps a couple of my experience having led the transformation for based on AI for an organization which is 65,000 people in 30 countries and 100 cities. Thank you for having me. I'm calling from Seattle today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm moderating from Fairfax, Virginia, in USA. So it's all late night here. Next, Nick, can you introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Ken, for having me on this panel. Esteemed colleagues and guests who are watching, thank you for your time. My name is Nick James. I'm the CEO and CAIO of White Glove AI. We're a Texas-based managed AI service provider. We perform consulting, systems integration, and managed services. Our mission is to help our clients securely and responsibly adopt artificial intelligence. Now, what's relevant to this conversation is our fractional Chief AI Officer service offering, or shortly titled VCAIO, which allows us to help our clients adopt AI by giving them a single-threaded leader who serves in a fractional manner, combined with our AI adoption and management framework, which is open sourced at aiamf.ai, if you'd like to look at it. And we help them organize all the right stakeholders in their adoption journey and help them implement securely. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, next, Andrea, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Izoni. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me in this prestigious event. I am the Chief AI Officer of a company called AI Technology, which is based in London. I am based in London, UK. All we do is basically AI project for other companies. I am also committee member for international standard organization. And every year we also published what is called the State of AI. We have a third, fourth edition, if I remember correctly, next year. And every year we give an overlook of what are the trends in the market. And based on that, we give an overlook what is going to be in the next 1-2 years, the adoption of AI, both in society and different industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. A little bit about myself. I'm co-chair the AI STR working group with the WDTA. Have been leading some of the standard that Professor Yeo Lee has introduced previously, and also participate in this educational program on the Chief AI Officer and also the certified professional for the generative AI. I think all the panelists here is at the front line of the work for the CIO law. So that is really good. We have lots of questions. Maybe I start with just high-level strategy questions. Maybe if you can very quickly list 5 top strategies that you can implement in terms of generative AI in your enterprise. Why not we start with Florian?
Thank you, Ken. Actually, I would like to focus on one piece of the strategy, which is very near and dear to my heart, because I believe it's a predictor and a fundamental requirement to succeed with AI in organizations, and that is people. Because I believe that we as an industry tend to focus so much on technology when we talk about AI. And there's nothing wrong with technology. Foundational models tend to get a lot of the attention. However, I believe strongly that we need to remember that AI needs to be in the service of humanity. And we need to realize that actually most people are quite skeptical still of AI. There is a level of distrust and fear. And I fundamentally believe that when we have the purpose of using AI to empower people to become the best versions of themselves, to thrive, to succeed in their professional and personal lives, to do things they might not have imagined they would be able to do otherwise, we get a level of trust. And when you get trust, you get adoption at scale. And when you get adoption at scale, you get value. So therefore, I really, really would encourage organizations, whether you're for profit or not for profit, to truly put the topic of people and organizational readiness at the top of your agenda for succeeding with AI.
That's great. Yeah, I think people first in the AI, especially in the generative AI area, is important. So thank you for that. Comments? Nick, what is your thought on the strategy?
While we're speaking about the three-legged stool of any organization, which is people, process, and technology, so thank you for starting with people, Lauren. I think I'll speak on process. Okay. I think for a long time now, we've been ever tolerant of processes that have been fundamentally broken. And there's a lot of this is how we've done it for so long, so we should continue doing it this way mentality. So I think that making sure that we are harnessing and leveraging AI for specific use cases where it will solve the problem is really key. We need to start with the process and the problem and not the technology, right? Otherwise, this is just a technology that's looking for a problem to solve, which is what, now we don't want that. So we always like to take the approach of examining key processes that are fundamental and critical to the organization, and mapping it out programmatically through partner tools of ours, and helping understand exactly where the flaws are in the process and where this new type of technology, generative AI, can come in and assist and scale the human.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea.
Yeah, so well, the main topic had been already touched, but I think I can add a little bit. So definitely the human element and the process element needs to be combined somehow. And the only way to combine it is to understand what the human is better than a machine, and when the machine or the AI machine is better than a human. In my opinion, a good framework or strategy, as you call in the question, to put the human in the right place and the machine in the right place to benefit us is to identify tasks or processes based on, is it factual based or is it intuition interpretation based? If you make this distinction, yeah. So there are tasks or projects that are factual based. You need to digest or take a lot of information, data, not necessarily number, but data of any sort. In that case, machine that basically have unlimited memory and they do not have emotion, they basically do not have emotion, way better than us. So everything that is factual based, a machine can take charge with a final control somehow when it needs to be the final process by the human. When there is an interpretation based or a forecast of any sort in the future, then a human or intuition based, basically, job, the human should take charge and do not trust the machine instead, because as we know, the future is not directly intelligible by the data. Otherwise, we will always be predictable. This is not reality. But anyway, if you do this distinction, then the machine will have its own will have its own place to help us in a way that it enhances us. Okay. But it cannot be at the detriment of our own intuition, okay? Because that's the only thing we still have to somehow infer or have hints about our future.
Great, yes. So I think we touch on very good point in terms of strategy. Florian talk about the people, Nick talking about process, Andrea talking about we have to verify the machine output. So this is all good. I think the next topic is also a bigger topic. If you feel good, maybe touch upon one or two. It's about ethics. As a CAIO, how do you implement ethics or ethical AI in your organization? Why not I start with Andrea? Go first. You go first.
Okay, sure. Look, as we all know, in August, the first body of law that's been implemented and actually put into force is the EU AI Act in Europe. And I think the framework is good in the sense that, first of all, the first principle is to protect life, human life, and life in general, okay? There are different tiers of what a company should or can do or cannot do based on the risk of certain application to the human life, okay? And basically, if it's high risk, it can be education or healthcare. They have a high input, whatever the tool or solution you're gonna use, they will have a high input on life. And then if there is a limited risk, that can be customer service or things like that, there will be limited risk. So you have these two tiers, okay? So when you have limited tiers, I think the ethical role of a CAI officer should be to draft documentation, make aware what the system or the data or the summary of the data is involved when it's being trained the AI model. By the way, all I'm saying is a derivation of the EU AI Act, okay, for limited risk application. when I'm talking about implementing and not just using high risk in terms of even life risk application, then on top of having documentation available or actually high level the AI application works, a summary of the data, you need to do a little bit further. What does it mean is you should have a process to evaluate and records the process of evaluation of the result or the accuracy or any other metric of the model. Okay, when something goes wrong, can happen, the thing goes wrong. AI is no different from any other application, of course, so things can go wrong. You should have a procedure of mitigation of, of the bad accident. What are you gonna do when something goes wrong? You have a procedure and you need to, implement it and have a risk record for this kind of accidents. And then lastly, probably is the most important of all, if it's a high risk AI application, again, healthcare, education, things like that, you should have a cybersecurity measure around the AI solution. That's to further decrease the risk that someone else, not intended, use the application for misbehaving or purposes that were not intended to be used for.
Great. Yeah, I think the evaluation framework is important. Also, somehow the preparedness framework. I had the opportunity to work with OpenAI's GRC leader, Nick Hamilton. He actually talking about the preparedness framework from OpenAI in one of the working group, the AI organization responsibility working group with Cloud Security Alliance. That was also really focused on the matrix, and if something happens, what is the procedure to escalate, right? To decide if you're using the model or not. Nick, what would be your comments?
I think Florin wants to jump in. Go ahead, Florin.
Thank
You were
you.
gesturing.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
One point I would like to make is that I believe, as Andrea was pointing out, that regulation is very important. I do believe, however, that regulation is never going to be able to move as quickly as technology. And therefore, I believe that we need to put the bar higher. And I believe that in terms of ethics, organizations should seek to establish a responsible AI framework, which includes the principles, the processes, the tooling, the training to be able to handle all of this. But I believe, again, we have a responsibility to aim higher. And there is an opportunity to embed organizational values and principles into a responsible and ethical AI usage, which puts the bar higher than regulation. And effectively to have AI incorporate the best version of an organizational culture every single day, programmatically, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a week. And what I've seen is that organizations which take this approach tend to end with more ethical and responsible AI. But this is used not just as a risk mitigator, but actually also as a competitive advantage, because you truly incorporate the best version of your organization and the culture into AI. So I know it's not easy, and I am a big fan of regulation, the right type of regulation, but I think we need to aim higher.
Yeah, we can expand more on the regulation side, but I do agree when you set your ethical AI higher bar than the regulation itself. Nick, yes.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point from Florin, and Andrea, thank you for kicking it off. Yeah, I've spent 20 years in cybersecurity. I've worked for companies like Bank of America, AWS, Deloitte. And I've come to the conclusion, having spent time in governance, risk, and compliance for a majority of my career, that complying with regulation is kind of like driving your car while looking in the rearview mirror. Okay, I know it's a little bit flippant to say that, but it's to reinforce what Florin said. Right, it's good for us to leverage regulation as a kind of a perhaps a North Star or even a point of calibration for what ethics means outside of the walls of my company. But we, or you as a leader, need to be very in sync with your business and how your business makes money, and define what ethics means to your organization. So defining that and codifying that in a policy is key. It's point number one, right? Number two is how do you, if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. So how do you measure compliance with your ethical standards and policies? That's through programmatic testing that both Andrea and Florin, indicated. I'll go back to a great example, a favorite movie of mine, I, Robot. In that movie, Isaac Asimov's three laws of robotics state a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow human being to come into harm. A robot must obey orders given it by human beings except where such order would conflict with the first law. And finally, a robot must protect its own existence as long as the such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So that's a great example of a set of ethics, right? That was particular to robotics because that's what that movie and those rules are based on. But I think your organization really needs to have its own definition and programmatically embed measurement and compliance against those ethics. Now, you can use the same technology that you're going to be governing to be discriminatory against the ethics policies, right? I think we're talking about agentic frameworks. Every agentic framework should have a discriminatory layer to it, meaning that there are the agents doing the work, but there are agents checking the work. They're discriminating the work, right? And they're measuring it against company policies to ensure compliance. Andrea brought up cybersecurity, my favorite topic, AI red teaming and red teaming models before they go live into production, and doing things like prompt injection, model manipulation, testing is key as well.
Actually, yeah, our next question, maybe I can start with Nick. You already touched upon a little bit. It's about how do you implement the AI security, especially generative AI security in organization. Currently, the safety and the security is a hot topic, but let us just focus on the security aspect.
Sure. I'm a very visual communicator. Is it okay if I share something, or should I just
Go ahead?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Just a moment. So obviously I'm biased, no pun intended, to my our AI AMF. So hang on one second. So this is the first layer. I'm just going to quickly show the 7 layers. It's 7-layer framework. This is the overview. There's the engine, and then the 5 sub layers are innovate, secure, govern, operate, and integrate. And so between secure and operate, there's a sort of a view. We haven't released this view yet, but in terms of implementation, this is in compliance with 42001, the AI risk management framework and the like. So I'll zoom in just a little bit so people can see sort of the individual components. When you're talking about implementing security, it starts on the innovation side, and you'll see some of the competencies of the roles, right? It starts with the strategy, it leads into impact analysis and traditional functions like vendor risk. But then going right into, on the secure side, having a full inventory of where AI or generative AI is used, having a component of enterprise risk management to include AI risk management, and all those learnings and exceptions and et cetera, all that's codified and supported by an AI policy, right? The policy then enforces AI inline security guardrails here, and then AI security testing. So when I say AI security testing, I mean within language model security operations, there are functions where you're performing those red teaming exercises. For those of you who are technical on the call and you know what a CI/CD pipeline is, there should be something similar, and it should follow that same sort of infinity loop from the CI/CD, where we perform testing of the models before we release them into the model farm. Okay, and then protecting the model's integrity is very important as well, ensuring that communication with the model in and out is really mediated by language model security operations. And then any calls to the models must follow certain pathways, and we believe it should be going through an API gateway, AI security guardrails like discrimination, policy checking, data masking and redaction, and then it hits the model, and the model produces a completion, and it goes back through the same channels. So I'll stop there.
Very nice. This is a nice picture. I think we're including this book, right? Did I
We
wait?
do. Yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
get this book.
There you go.
Okay.
Get the book.
That's the AI handbook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
That
also
was
as a risk management framework. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Thank
a
you.
very technical answer. So I'm hoping Florin and Andrea can bring it up a few levels for me.
Yeah,
I mean, I would add.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would add that in my experience, humans are still the weak link in security. And I do believe there is a lot of training and education that needs to happen in a lot of organizations. And that is something that at least we've been doing internally with the School of AI to literally train tens of thousands of people around safe and useful ways of doing prompting, how to think about responsible usage, and in general to understand the risks and the limitations of generative AI. So I believe that I totally agree with Nick in terms of we need to take securing AI very, very seriously, so we do not replicate the challenges of 20, 30 years ago in the last technology revolution with internet as an example. But I still believe that actually the main challenge and the main risk for securing AI is we as people and the way we interact with AI. The last point I would make is actually we focused again on the risk potential of having to secure AI. I would also argue that AI can be used to make systems more secure. So the same as any technology, it is both a risk and an opportunity. And I have seen, for example, security co-pilots being used extensively and quite successfully to help humans to run security operations in a much more efficient and effective manner, to help people make sense of signals in all the noise which is often triggered by security systems. So yeah, those are the 2 points I would make. Don't forget people, and then let's not think about AI as just a security risk, but also actually as a security enabler.
Great, Florin. Certainly, that's a very good 2 point in terms of the weakest link is human, and also AI can help the AI security, and the security is important for AI. Andrea, maybe you can add a few more points.
Yeah, obviously I agree with what Florin and Nick just said, but I just again it's the conclusions on me, so I'll bring I'll wrap it up. So yeah, definitely you need to have all the processes that the techies within the organization need to know the process, if not all, at least some of the processes that Nick alluded to. And definitely, as Florin said, the human are the weakest link in all the processes. And now, especially because we are not talking about AI in general, but generative AI, which basically is tools with human input. I would say, just to simplify all of this, there are 3 main things that any organization should do. So first of all, make a policy of which data they can, or any employee or staff member is allowed to put in this tool or generative AI solution, right? Which document or which images, whatever it is, they are not allowed to put or interact with this generative AI tool. The second is, I think it's a change of mentality, first of all. So we've all read about hallucination. Anyway, these AI tools may go wrong. By the way, any tool or any technology go wrong somehow, somewhere. But anyway, we are talking about AI, yes, of course, they go around. So the idea to me is a shift of mentality. So you shouldn't expect the AI, generative AI solution to be 100% secure or secure. So you need to put the security the accuracy of the security not on the solution, but on the processes and the walls around the solution. So you shift from thinking to secure the solution itself to thinking that the solution, the security is on the wall you put on the AI, yeah? So you shift from the AI to the security around the AI, from the AI to the security around the AI, okay? You need to do this shift. And the third aspect of it is having an assurance process that not only assure the quality of the output, but can somehow verify if, if there is some malicious agent interfering, you can catch it within the process of quality assurance. If you do these three things, I would say you're pretty good. It's not easy to do all these three. Well, the first one is easy. I mean, you should be able to do a policy of which data you can or cannot put in your AI solution. The other two obviously are way more complex.
Great. So we kind of over time, so maybe we have two more questions to go over. So keep your answer short if possible. At least we can go two more. The next question, pretend I'm your board of directors. You need to ask me, how can I help you as a CAIO in implement your vision? Maybe I start with Florian first for this question.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you are in the world, boards have a fiduciary responsibility of loyalty and a duty of care. And AI clearly is fundamentally important to businesses, both in terms of the strategic opportunity to use AI to grow the business, to make the business more successful, but actually also as a risk to be managed. And I'm seeing boards become very active and very interested in the topic of AI. I work extensively with boards, but I also recognize that a lot of boards have a hunger for and a need for education around the power and implication and the risks with AI. So actually having appointed management and leadership who owns the topic, i.e. chief AI officers, is often a key role, a key step in this process. I would say the next set of questions which a board member would typically ask is around where AI is used in the supply chain of an organization, whether it's software supply chain or actual physical goods supply chain. And then critically important to understand if and why and where AI has been used potentially in terms of preparing financial statements, which again is a risk to be managed. What I am delighted to see, though, is that there is AI certification for board directors, which is in the works, the same way that we have security certification for board directors. AI certification is coming available, and I see a lot of board directors being extraordinarily interested in this.
Great, that's a good news. And Nick.
Yeah, really great points, Florian, on what's the job of a board member, right? You have to understand the dynamics of a board member. Sometimes board members have their attention directed to numerous companies. They're not just on your board, they're on somebody else's board and there's somebody else's board. So I think that education is probably key. So if I was to be asked by, excuse me, my board of directors, how can I help you, CAIO, properly implement your vision? It comes down to support. I'm not saying blindly trust everything I say. I would say that lean on me to fill in the gaps where you don't understand. I would say make a commitment to educating yourself. I wasn't aware of the certification that Florian mentioned, but I'm excited about that. This history repeats itself. The same thing happened with cybersecurity. I'm actually speaking at the Private Directors Association at a cybersecurity conference hosted by the Private Directors Association. which, you know, it just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Private Directors Association didn't care about cybersecurity until it became a really big deal, and we saw breaches, you know, in the 8-figure size, right? So I would say start early, and I would say to follow the news is really important. Every board member, I'm hoping, has a routine on how they stay up to date in the industry and the fields that they serve in. So I'd say education and staying current with the news.
Great. Next, thank you. Andrea?
I guess there is also in terms of, you know, I'm conscious of time as well, so I will be very quick. I will just say that somehow the role of AI and expert or chief AI officer in a board should be around auditing or drafting or reviewing somehow or assess the audit on the AI procedure or anything related to the AI procedure or policy within the company. It depends how big the organization, the bigger, you know, more overall the role will be, the smaller, more hands-on it will be, but everything will be around the, you know, internal audit or policies and procedures around the AI application and solutions.
Great, Andrea. So I think we have one more question, which is very important. Florian actually touched a little bit about this. I think everyone talk about a little bit when we're talking about ethics. Certainly ethics should be more than the regulation, but the global landscape of the regulation is ever evolving. I think the panelists already mentioned about EU AI Act, which is in act since August 1st in 27 nations in EU. So it's the law of the land in EU, right? So it will be the majority of the provision will start in 2026, August 2nd. But organization already trying to figure out how to apply, especially if you are a global organization, you need to work in EU, like your application need to be deployed. And also in California, there is a 83 bills in the governor desk about AI. Most famously is the SB 1047. And most probably governor will veto it because lots of forward thinking, so-called the risk, it's hard to predict. So he's trying to say it's more like a near-term risk. So maybe need a more modification of 1047 in order for a governor to sign. So we will see, because California is the biggest state in the United States. We will see what California will be doing. Eventually, it will have a huge impact to US and also globally. But with that backdrop, maybe let me first start with Florian in terms of how, as a CAIO, to given this global dynamics or ever-changing regulation environment, how can you kind of design a program to meet the compliance? Florian, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. As you point out, the regulatory landscape is quite complex. It varies by geography, and sometimes it can be quite confusing with different bodies imposing similar but not exactly the same regulatory requirements on a specific industry. My guidance is actually simple, and that is assume that you will be regulated regardless of the industry you're in and regardless of where you operate in the world. Because the way we see things evolving is that quite basic scenarios, for example, in HR, are increasingly being regulated, and AI is simply being used in almost all applications, in all processes, and therefore, I think it's quite important that organizations behave and start to think as a regulated organization operating in a regulated industry, even if you historically have not been a company which has been regulated. And this is going to be a surprise to a number of industries and verticals. And you could argue whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't believe we have time to fully elaborate on that. But my number one guidance is think and act as if you are regulated, because you will be.
Thank you, Florian, for this insight. Nick?
Yeah, I like to help people understand that CAIOs, if you stay close with your CISO and your CPO or your CLO or your chief privacy officer, once again, I'm going to repeat myself. History repeats itself, right? The same thing happened in cybersecurity and privacy. So if you stay close to a lot of these AI policies are heavily based on principles, cybersecurity and AI privacy principles, right? So yes, second what Florence said, assume you will be regulated, but then also use the AI to help you understand your regulatory encumbrance, right? You have access to the tools, you might as well use them for the betterment of your program, right? AI can be used in a myriad of ways to help you stay up to date with regulation, compare current policy to new regulation. And then, finally, I want people to understand the dynamics of the EU versus the US. The EU likes to make policies that are broad-reaching. I believe Thierry Breton was the former commissioner, the European commissioner. He just stepped down. He was a huge proponent of the EU AI Act, and a lot of startups are throwing parties in the European Union right now because they considered before anything with AI GDPR to be highly prohibitive. And now the EU AI Act is the same thing. But here in the US, it's very distributed. You have California with the CCPA, you have New York with the NYDFS, and then you have a few other states that have their own privacy regulations, but you don't see anything broad-reaching across all 50 states. And I think we'll continue that. I don't know, based on which who gets elected as president, but I think that historically the United States has let the states set their own regulations. So that's the final thing I'll say about the regulatory landscape.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea, you conclude the remarks.
Yeah, okay, of course, very concise in the interest of time as well. I don't have any time but in case someone else want to, investigate itself, there is a distinction between vertical regulation and horizontal regulation. Horizontal is across different industries, while vertical, you regulate per industries. There are countries that are doing that. I believe some countries some state within the US are doing something like that. But regardless of that, I believe if you have different regulation, I would say common sense is a good principle. If you behave well, if the company behave well, roughly speaking, you choose one body of law and you should be roughly applicable to the other. On top of that, remember, there are international certification. One is ISO, full disclosure, as I said before, I'm a member of that. As a committee member that drafted the policy. If you are certified on that, it's valid across the world because it's the same certification that is valid everywhere. And I think in one of the slides of Nick, there was the one that is 42,001. There should be applicable if you want to have, certify on your good behavior on usage of AI. Again, it's called ISO 42001, and that is valid across the world. What does it mean in practice? It means that very, very likely, if you have, for example, ISO 42,001. Of course, there are others, by the way, and not that I'm doing the advertisement of them. There are others, but this is the, I would say, the most famous one. 42,001 certified, if your company 42,001 certified, very, very likely it will basically be abiding for any kind of regulation, no matter what the jurisdiction is.
Right.
I just want to make one quick point of clarification. It cannot be used in substitution. So if you undergo an examination, your examiner will not accept your ISO certification in lieu of evidence to compliance for that examination. Just
of course, yeah, I agree with that. But the point is, if you already done all that, it should be a marginal work, or at least I hope should be a marginal work to comply with whatever law or legislation has, because the majority of the work you have basically already done.
And that would be true that in your context of horizontal versus vertical. I think that's very true for horizontal regulation, right? You can, a fair assumption. Okay. Yeah.
Very good discussion. I think, with ISO, you are at least many steps ahead.
Just to clarify, just the last word, but I think Nick agree on that. I don't think we have anything better, unfortunately, today. That's the problem. There is valid across the world, and roughly speaking, we can use. That's unfortunate, but that's the case.
Yeah, I recently reviewed ISO 27090. Just in draft version. It seems it's good. Anyway, I think thank you everyone, Florian, Nick, and Andrea, for taking part of your Saturday off for this wonderful panel. I think you really mastered in terms of the topic, in terms of the breadth and depth. It's to the point. So thank you so much. With that, back to Patricia.
Thank you so much to our distinguished panelists and moderator. To conclude, we are honored to have the following prominent educators with us to discuss digital identity in the era of artificial intelligence. We've got Professor Gray Marcus, who's a professor at the New York University, and Professor Zhifeng Hao, who's the president of Shantou University. They're joining us via video. May the WDTH colleagues please assist in playing the video.
Hi, I'm Gary Marcus, and I'm here to talk about what kind of AI we should want. And I think we can all agree it's one that's consistent with human rights and human dignity. However, that's not necessarily what we're getting. So I think we can all agree, for example, that it was a great thing that UNESCO adopted the first global standard on the ethics of AI, and that we want, our AI to be grounded in respect, protection, promotion of human rights. I don't think anybody should disagree. The White House blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights is similarly grounded in human rights. But what kind of AI do we have now? We have one that is technically and morally inadequate. Generative AI has a factuality problem. If it answers a question like which weighs more, a kilogram of bricks or 2 kilograms of feathers, it might simply make things up and say that in air, 2 kilograms of feathers would weigh slightly less than a kilogram of bricks. We've all seen errors like this. Or biographies like this one, where generative AI says that I make piquant observations about the nature of intelligence inspired by my pet chicken, Henrietta. Only problem, I don't have a pet chicken, nor any pet named Henrietta. And these errors continue to this day. If you ask a system, who was the first elephant to swim across an English Channel? You might get something completely made up. You never know. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Generative AI also has a covert racism problem, as an article in Nature showed recently, generating covertly racist decisions about people based on their dialect. And of course, if you ask it to show a leader, it'll probably show you a white male. Generative AI also has a Generative AI also has a plagiarism problem. For example, if you ask it to draw an Italian plumber, it might show you the Nintendo character, Mario. The kind of AI that we have today, is unstable and is unanchored in reality. And that brings many risks. In my recent book, Taming Silicon Valley, that's coming out this week, I describe a dozen different risks, from disinformation and market manipulation to accelerating crime, cybersecurity, bias, and so forth. There are many, and there may be more risks in the long term. It is at least conceivable that AI could give rise to pandemics. It could be as dangerous as a pandemic. It could be as dangerous as nuclear war. It could accidentally lead to nuclear war. All the CEOs know that this is possible. They might be exaggerating in order to make their own technology seem more powerful than it is, but there are long-term risks. What are we going to do about any of this? In my new book, Taming Silicon Valley, I go into a lot of recommendations for policy. I don't think I really have time to go through all of them right now, but let me say a few things. First, there are many risks and not just one. I showed you a dozen in that table. Existing law was largely or entirely written before large language models came on the scene. It's not realistic to expect a silver bullet, or to expect that existing laws will cover everything that needs to be covered. Probably the most important thing is to recognize that agility is key, that whatever we set up in order to deal with AI has to be able to move as fast as AI itself is moving. I would say that we need transparency at many levels. What data is being trained on? What kinds of accidents have happened? What do the companies do internally to look at their systems? I think it's urgent that we have an FDA-like approval process for large-scale deployment. Do the benefits of any given technology outweigh the risks? Can't be just up to the companies to decide. We need post-release auditing by independent third parties. We need to have liability for companies. We need to have layered oversight like we do with airlines, where we have regulation over how an airplane is built, how it's maintained, how it's repaired, how people investigate when there are accidents, and so forth. We also need independent oversight with scientists in the loop. Can't be entirely up to the companies and the governments, because the companies are always putting pressure on the governments. We need independence there. Every country should have a national AI agency and a global AI agency. The companies give a lot of lip service to all of this, but that doesn't mean that we should believe what they say. Every company, and really every country, is saying we declare that AI poses potentially catastrophic risk to humankind, and then behind closed doors, they're basically saying, and I cannot wait to develop it first. They have obviously split interests, and that's why we can't leave things entirely to the companies. Whatever we do, we shouldn't let the big tech companies decide everything for all of humanity. A good example where we're actually doing that is open source. It's a very controversial question whether we should have open source or not. And in fact, the things people are calling open source AI aren't really open source in the sense that anybody can look at the code, or in the sense that anybody can fix the bugs. But that's a story for another day. Suffice to say that there are advocates like Yann LeCun at Facebook, and their opponents like Geoffrey Hinton, who used to be at Google. They're both, of course, pioneers in machine learning. I honestly don't know the right answer. I think there's advantages in speeding things along and risks as certain technologies become released to the public. What I do know, not knowing the right answer, is it shouldn't just be up to someone like Mark Zuckerberg to decide. But that's really what happened with open source large language models. There'll be future technologies. We can ask this question again for those future technologies. But for large language models, LeCun and Zuckerberg decided to release things to everybody, and now they're available to bad actors everywhere. Another example is that OpenAI has acknowledged that new models increase risk of misuse to create bioweapons. They say they're worried about it, but they're selling it anyway, selling it to paid subscribers. Basically, anyone who gets their hands on it can. Is that really the right decision? And who should make that decision? That's the most important question. I'm afraid that a cartoon on the left is starting to become real. In the cartoon on the left, some people are sitting around a campfire and they say, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. That was a joke in 2012. It was actually a joke about climate change, which I'll turn to in a minute. The reality is Sam Altman actually said something similar to that. AI will most likely lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be many great companies created. Do we want people whose interests are in business and not necessarily humanity, even if they say that they are, to be making these decisions unilaterally for all of humanity? I don't think that we should. The issues that with AI parallel those with climate change. We must act with urgency. There's a limited time window for action. We can't count on governments without the support of the people. We are going to need grassroots action from the people to back up the governments that mean well. The choices that we make now will have lasting effects, quite possibly for decades and even centuries. I thank you very much.
Dear distinguished guest, the question I'm asking is, can there be a connect between the digital identity and the digital education? The very first point is, should digital identity can be integrated into the higher education? If yes, how to do? The first one is the digital identity major with the vocational or technical attribution, or only can be joined course as another major, such as the blockchain major in information security. The second one is the digital identity is a special course or just a collection of the several special courses. The third one is the practice of the digital identity in the class. How to teach digital identity? The second part is the application of the digital identity in digital education. First, how to identify the people receive education are the learning themselves. For example, prevent cheating behavior, like skipping class, substitute for learning, and lazy. Second, improve the reliability of the data in the governance of the digital education. Third one is the very important one. New instrument in the education reform after application of the digital identity. Traditional is the teacher and the student correspondent. In artificial intelligence, the computer is added. Is the learning environment or interest learning environment? So we can consist this change bring about the alignment and the transfer, also from the one country to other country, also for the data and the case, especially case study. So promoting the construction of the common with the shared future of the mankind in education, and creating a better future for humanity with the authority of the digital identity. The third part is the necessary of the unified digital identity. The first one, it helps to trust among the youth from the all countries in the digital world. The second is education itself have the complement demand. Third, link with the digital twins, metaverse, VR, including process of the education and the instrument, and issue the contribute and confirm causality. Conclude my speech, digital identity. Trust embody of the right to education. First, moderate globalization of the digital identity is timely. Second, education is a possible application. Third, artificial intelligence have to speed up the possible and agents to implement digital identity. I would like to thank the organizers for the United Nations Future Summit Action Day. Santo University will implement and cooperation with the relative work of the AISTR activities. Thank you, all distinguished guests.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our speakers and participants for joining us at this very important side event of the United Nations Summit of the Future. And thank you for the organizers from the WDTA. We hope the discussion today have provided valuable insights into the future of digital identity and cooperation in the age of AI. We look forward to continued collaboration and innovation in these critical areas. Have a good night and have a good morning.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
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 陈院士，谢谢你，周末愉快。好，拜拜。